All right, talk about some of the things I'm learning from Cropout. So here is a little Unreal project that I've been dissecting to try and understand how to do certain things like menu and global state. So yeah, so I'll get into that. Right now, I wanted to get to the player and the camera, but it really just took me a while to dissect just the whole thing. Thing is, you can't really just migrate pieces over or drag and drop it over. They kind of have to really understand where it's coming from. And a quick example of how that can turn sour is this simple guy, the UI transition. To move this over, it has some pieces in it, and why isn't it showing all of the pieces? Let's go to the designer. So it has like these pieces in here, but this little common text guy, I don't know if I can get it to show up, but it is a common UI widget, and it's pulling this other library in, like it's a plugin. And so whenever you use this handy little tool to migrate out, see, so if I come here and I do asset actions migrate, and then I pass this off to my to my project, First Opinion, it kind of works. Like it'll bring all these things over, but then this will start to fail and it'll complain about being of type none. It took me a little bit to figure out, but when I was hovering over this guy, which is one of the texts, this guy, it had common UI, and right where it says parent class, it'll say common UI dot common text style, and it'll import like that. But because I didn't have the right plugins in here, I had to install, which figuring this out was not straightforward, but I had to install this common UI plugin and then restart, and that got it to work. But that actually wasn't enough by itself. Also had to come into project settings, and then there was another one under general. Where was it? It's like general UI, general settings. That's what it was. So it was in engine general settings, and then this game viewport client class had to be changed to common game viewport client, and so those had to be adjusted in order to get this UI transition imported into my project. And so I wanted to do something really small because I was going to pull in like the player input controller or something like that, like the camera and stuff, but uh, wanted to start with something much smaller to just get this minimal amount of things in. Um, so to get it initialized, I started to copy the pattern that they had, and don't need everything, absolutely everything, but started to copy it over. And they have this GI concept and this get GI. It's not very clear, but it's coming from a static. It doesn't say it's a static function list, but that's what it is. It's a static function list. So I had to create a static function list, which I believe I put in here. So I created a static function list. And so then I can call this from anywhere in Blueprints. And so I got this ability to call and get this GI, which stands for game instance. And this is ideally going to be used to store global variables and game state like that for the player. And so I'm going to spawn different like UI widgets or timing and whatever globals are needed to just keep a grip on things. I think like references for models and stuff could be used in there, like a factory classes and stuff. So we're going to get all that set up. And right now we're just getting the Steel GI and then, which is the game instance, and then we're calling this function on it, transition out. And so over here we have transition out, and this calls it, and it'll pull this UI widget, and if it doesn't exist or if it's not in the viewport, it'll spawn it. And if it is, then it'll just trigger a function on it, which is this thing called transout. And you have to go to graph here, and then it's going to fire off transout. And this animation here, it took me a second to find this as well. This animation is located in the designer and then animations, and you can then see it here. I changed the name. It was called like new animation. And then I was finally able to understand how it was working, because when you looked at this M radial cut here, which is referenced in the image, which I also renamed to blackness. So you see this M radial cut animated guy here. And so it's got this material, and I was like, what the heck is going on here? I don't see any time inputted. I don't see, so I didn't see how it was doing any animation because I don't see any inputs. Like the texture coordinates are static values, are not going to change, especially because that image is just like a black box or a white box. So anyways, I was like looking up constant bias scales, like what is happening here? And it's really nothing fancy. I thought this was like automatic timing, but I didn't know that it existed in shaders, and it doesn't. It doesn't exist in shaders. So anyways, yeah, so went in circles looking there and turned out that it was actually right here. And this animation is adjusting. You can see the image here, and it's adjusting the scale, which would adjust the UVs. And so that makes sense. And that's how you can get this little mask animation going. So finally made some sense. And so now I've got it in, all of that for a whole bunch of nothing. That was it. See, that was too fast. So I'll replay it again. Yeah, that was it. So there, I got a piece of another game pulled into here, and we'll keep going. I'm just going to pull the player controller and the camera. Really, I don't really need the whole game. Just it's really good to understand how a project can be structured, and using it in combination with this repository to really come up with a robust organization system. So this style guide has been great, a great guide for coming up with names and understanding conventions inside of Unreal specifically. So yeah, it's been good. I'm going to keep going.